You know what's hilarious? Spending $60 million to build a highway that literally doesn't go anywhere, and I'm not being metaphorical here. I'm talking about a real, actual expressway, 4 lanes, limited access, proper interchanges, the whole 9 yards, that just ends abruptly. Like someone hit the pause button on a construction project and forgot to hit play again for 40 years. Welcome to the Amstutz Expressway in Waukegan, Illinois, also known as the Road to Nowhere. Also known as Lake County's most expensive joke. Also known as the place where Hollywood goes when they need to film car chases without inconveniencing actual commuters, because there aren't any. And the story of how we got here is absolutely wild. Let's start with the punchline. This expressway is 2.9 miles long, has exactly 1 exit, carries fewer than 15,000 vehicles per day, which for context is about 1/6 of the traffic of most suburban Chicago expressways. And it cost over $60 million to build. Oh, and it was built in 2 phases, 16 years apart. The southern portion opened in 1974, the northern portion opened in 1990, because apparently when you're building a road to nowhere, there's no reason to rush. And here's what makes the Amstutz truly special. It's so empty, so useless as an actual highway, that it's become one of the most popular filming locations in the entire Midwest. The Blues Brothers film there. Groundhog Day, that scene where Bill Murray is trying to leave town before the snowstorm hits, that's the Amstutz. Batman Begins, when the police are chasing the Batmobile before Batman disappears into a secret lair, yep, that's the Amstutz Expressway. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Ice Harvest, Ordinary People, Chicago Fire, Contagion, that Matt Damon pandemic thriller where the Amstutz stood for Chicago's Dan Ryan Expressway, even a Toyota Prius Super Bowl commercial was filmed there. The Illinois Film Office literally calls Waukegan and asks, hey, is the Amstutz still the road to nowhere? Because it makes a perfect stand-in for busy highways. It looks like a real expressway, but you can shut it down for days without causing any real traffic problems. As Waukegan's Director of Public Relations said back in 1998, we don't charge a rental fee either, just what it costs for Public Works and Police to close it. So yeah, Waukegan's most expensive infrastructure project has found its true calling, pretending to be other highways and movies. But let's back up and talk about how we got to this magnificent disaster in the first place, because the story starts way back in 1906. Yes, 1906, before most cars even existed, when someone had the bright idea for a lakefront industrial highway that would connect the factories along Lake Michigan north of Chicago. Fast forward to the 60s and 70s, when America was in full freeway building mode, every city wanted expressways, more lanes, higher speeds, urban renewal through concrete. The vision for what would become the Amstutz was actually pretty ambitious. The plan was to build a major expressway that would run from the Tri-State Tollway, that's I-94, about 3 miles west of Waukegan, all the way up to the Lake Michigan shoreline to the Wisconsin state line. The idea was that it would serve as an alternative to I-94, easing congestion and providing easy access to the industrial waterfront areas of Waukegan and North Chicago. This made sense at the time because Waukegan's lakefront was packed with factories. You had the Outboard Marine Corporation making boat motors. You had Johns Manville manufacturing asbestos, before we realized asbestos kills you. And you had all kinds of industrial operations. Plus, North Chicago had the Naval Station Great Lakes, which needed good highway access. So in 1972, the plan was formally adopted. Build this sucker from Northbrook to Wisconsin. Let's do this. Except they didn't. Here's what they did build. A 1.3-mile stretch in North Chicago from Buckley Road to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and a 2.9-mile stretch in Waukegan from Genesee Street north to Greenwood Avenue. That's it. 2 disconnected segments that don't even connect to each other, let alone to Wisconsin or I-94. The missing link between the 2 segments? Never built. The extension south to I-94? Never built. The extension north to Wisconsin? Never built. They just stopped. Well, why? Well, timing is everything, and the timing for the Amstutz could not have been worse. Right as they were building this thing in the 1970s, the American manufacturing economy started collapsing. Those factories the expressway was supposed to serve, they started closing. Waukegan's industrial base, like so many Rust Belt cities, got gutted. By the time the northern section of the Amstutz opened in 1990, remember 16 years after the southern section, most of the factories it was designed to serve were already gone. So, you've got this beautiful modern 4-lane limited access expressway with proper overpasses and interchanges. You can still see the ghost ramps and the extra wide medians that were built for future extensions that never came, serving an industrial base that doesn't exist anymore, which makes it known as one of the most pointless highways in Illinois. So congratulations, Amstutz, but wait, it gets better or worse depending on your perspective, because the Amstutz doesn't just fail at being a useful highway, it actively makes Waukegan worse. See, the location of the expressway is right along the lakefront between downtown Waukegan and Lake Michigan. So instead of connecting the city to its waterfront, which, as I've discussed in other videos, has this beautiful marina and development potential, the Amstutz acts as a barrier. It's literally cutting downtown off from the lake. As one Waukegan official described it, the expressway separates the upstairs from the downstairs. Downtown Waukegan is on one side, the lakefront is on the other, and in between is this big empty highway that's dangerous and difficult to cross on foot. This is particularly frustrating because Waukegan has been trying for decades to revitalize its lakefront and connect it to the downtown. They've got master plans, development proposals, marina improvements, all this effort to transform the waterfront into a mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly area. And the Amstutz is just sitting there like a concrete middle finger saying, nope, you can't connect those two things. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so it's useless and it creates problems. Why not just tear it down? Great question. They've been talking about that since the early 2000s. Various proposals have been floated over the years. One idea was to just demolish it and move the nearby railroad tracks onto the expressway right-of-way. Another proposal suggested building a 200-room hotel and conference center on a massive deck erected over the expressway downtown, because if you can't get rid of the highway, just build over it, I guess. And here's where it gets interesting. There's actually momentum building to remove or boulevard the Amstutz. In 2025, the Congress for the New Urbanism, which tracks unnecessary urban highways across the country, included the Amstutz Expressway on their Freeways Without Futures list. This is a big deal because CNU has successfully advocated for highway removals in places like Milwaukee, Rochester, and San Francisco. The current plan being studied would do 3 things. 1, remove the southern portion of the Amstutz entirely. 2, create a capped park over a section of the expressway in downtown, basically creating a park deck that lets people walk from downtown to the waterfront. 3, convert the northern portion into a regular boulevard, slower speeds, better pedestrian access, actual connections to the street grid. This makes sense because the current traffic volume is only about 5,750 vehicles per day, and that number has been decreasing over the years. A normal boulevard could easily handle 4 times that amount of traffic. But here's the catch. Even though everyone agrees the Amstutz is a problem, even though removal plans have been discussed for over 20 years, nothing has actually happened. Because removing a highway is expensive, requires coordination between city, state, and federal agencies, and nobody wants to be the one who pulls the trigger. So for now, the Amstutz just sits there, getting repaved occasionally. They just did crack and joint sealing in 2023 because even roads to nowhere need maintenance. Still carrying a paltry 15,000 cars a day, still separating downtown from the lakefront, still serving as Hollywood's favorite fake highway. There are a few funny side effects of having this weird empty expressway. 1, it became a de facto drag racing strip before they increased police presence, primarily because it was long, straight, empty, and a big wide 4-lane highway with nowhere to hide. Yeah, that's going to attract street racers. 2, the city hosted Bike the Amstutz festivals where they closed the expressway and let cyclists ride the entire length with live music, artwork, games, and prizes, because if you've got a useless highway, you might as well throw a party on it. And 3, one journalist in 2015 called it a massive purple wart on the city and road. There's nothing about the 2.9-mile abomination and its social, financial, aesthetic, or cultural contribution to Waukegan that could not be improved by unleashing jackhammers to destroy it. And honestly, he's not wrong. But here's the thing that really gets me. The Amstutz is named after Melvin E. Amstutz, who was the Lake County Highway Superintendent in the 1960s. Poor Melvin probably thought he was going to be remembered for building this great piece of infrastructure that would serve the community for generations. Instead, his name has become synonymous with government boondoggles and wasteful spending. His legacy is literally the road to nowhere. That's rough, dude. Actually, it gets even more complicated. Part of the expressway, the North Chicago section, was renamed in 2010 to the Bobby Thompson Expressway after a former North Chicago mayor. So now we've got two people's names attached to segments of the same highway that don't connect to each other and don't really go anywhere. I'm not saying having a road named after you is a curse, but actually in this case, it's totally a curse. The Amstutz Expressway is a perfect example of what happens when highway planning means economic reality, and economic reality wins. You've got grand plans made in the 60s and 70s based on assumptions about industrial growth and car culture that turned out to be completely wrong. You've got construction that happened in fits and starts over decades. You've got changing priorities and declining budgets and factories closing and nobody wanting to admit that maybe we should just stop building the damn thing. And the result is a $60 million highway that serves maybe 5% of its intended purpose and actively harms the community it was supposed to help. But you know what? At least Batman got to drive on it. The broader lesson here is about the permanence of infrastructure decisions. Once you build a highway, it's really, really hard to get rid of it. Even when everyone acknowledges it's a mistake, even when actively making things worse, even when it costs more to maintain than it provides value. The Amstutz has been useless for over 30 years. People have been calling for its removal for over 20 years. Plans have been drawn up, studies have been commissioned, and yet it's still there because infrastructure, once built, develops its own constituency. There are still people using it, not many, but enough that if you close it, those people will complain. There's the State Department of Transportation that owns it and has budgets for maintaining it. There's a film industry that loves it. There's the sheer inertia of, well, it's there, so let's just keep it going. And so the Amstutz endures, a monument to mid-century transportation planning hubris, a testament to the decline of American manufacturing, and apparently a pretty good place to film car chases. If you're ever in the Chicago area and you want to see the infrastructure failure up close, take a drive on up to the Amstutz Expressway. It'll take you half an hour and you'll see one exit. You'll see the northern terminus where the highway ends, complete with extra wide medians and road stubs showing where the future extensions were supposed to go. And you'll think to yourself, wow, we really spent $60 million on this thing? So, welcome to Waukegan, where even the highways don't know what they're doing.